I won't be able to help you. Yeah, I won't be able to help you.
I just didn't know how to turn on.
Lower right. Lower right. Okay. Okay, we are live on YouTube now, but no one sees it yet. Our outside has yet to come in. Almost there. I'll let you know when you're live and wait a second for me to record. Okay, we are live on YouTube now. So give me a second to start recording, please. We are recording and ready to go. So you are live right now on YouTube. It's being recorded, and when it's completed, I will post it on the district website. Okay, so everyone has been admitted who has submitted to this Zoom to participate.
Okay, so we're good to go? Are we good to go, Mr. Janis?
You're good to go.
All right, thank you very much for your assistance in getting that set up and running. Hello, everyone. My name is John MacSwan. I am the superintendent of the Cleveland Hills School District, and I thank you for joining us here at another one of our virtual town hall meetings. I also want to thank all of you who have called, sent emails, and given us questions for today's forum. Your feedback and communication with us is key in making sure that we deliver the best possible plan that reflects the needs and the wishes of our community to the best of our ability. I would also like to thank, and I have them here with me today, is our administrative team. I do want to thank all of you for not only participating today, but for the incredible leadership and effort that you have all shown. And though it has been a lion's share of work for everyone, the three building principals, I do want to thank you especially for the work you have done up front and working with your respective committees. So thank you very much. And also to the committee members. We've had almost 90 committee members serving on the four different committees, 4 different reopening committees, 3 at the building levels, and again at the district level plan. Now, we know that no plan will make everyone happy, but that's not going to stop us from trying. I do want to also note to the community that recently, at the end of last week, we did upload and attach to our district plan at the end of it are the 3 specific building level processes and procedures and protocols that have been developed by those building level plans. So I would encourage you to please have an opportunity to go on there and take a look at those. I do want to start by saying that there is no responsibility that we take more seriously than the health and safety of your kids, our students, and our faculty and staff. Health and safety has been and will continue to be the foundation with which every decision that we make in regards to reopening schools. I will never have this district open up if it's an environment that I would not send my own children into. We received a handful of questions that were addressed in last week's video. We will touch on those today. on those today, but I encourage you to please go back, go to our website. You'll be able to view all the documents, the different plans, the processes there, as well as our previous town hall meeting where a number of those questions were answered in great detail. But again, we will touch on those today, again, for our new group of parents. But I really encourage everyone, if you haven't had a chance to watch it yet, our town hall meeting from last week. Another important reminder I'd like to send out to the community is that tomorrow, our principals building level question and answer videos will be posted. On behalf of the principals, we also want to thank all the parents who have sent in questions for those. They've been incredibly detailed and giving us a great opportunity to respond with the clarity and depth with which you're looking for. Our plan today is I will say a few words. We will then go through the questions that we received from our community for today's forum. If you did submit a question and you feel as though it was not addressed clearly, please give me an email, give me a call. I will get back to you immediately to get those questions answered for you. And then at the end, any community members who had signed up to speak, we will then give you that opportunity to speak. As we move forward, we will also look to do future meetings and communications using this forum, and hopefully we can have some face-to-face meetings in the not too distant future with our community. We do understand the fear that people have in coming back to work and sending their children to school. This is a little repetitive. If you have watched the first video, this is you'll hear a little bit of maybe what I did say at our previous meeting, but I want you to understand that we do completely understand the fear that some people have. There's been a core of us that have been here working in district since the dismissal first occurred back in March. During that time, we have watched several of our colleagues return to work with the same fear. And, once they got accustomed to our new reality, the following the Department of Health guidelines, the CDC guidelines, social distancing, hand washing, keeping our hands away from our face, they were able to transition back in effectively and are very comfortable now being back in the school setting. And again, I just want to reiterate that our number one priority for reopening schools is the health and safety of our students, faculty, and staff. And a close second to that is the social, emotional health and support of our faculty, staff, students, and community as we transition back into school. It's going to take us some time to establish these new safety procedures and protocols as habits, but we will get there. Part of having that safe and effective transition back to school is a true partnership with our parents. Parents will have a very important role in this. One of the first things that I do want to just remind everyone of, because it's vitally important, is that parents do need to check their children's temperature each morning prior to coming to school. They also need to monitor them for COVID-like symptoms and follow the health screening plan that's detailed, or the health screening survey that's detailed in our plan. There's different questions in there, like if they had close contact, and I will talk a little bit about close contact a little later on and define that. Do they have symptoms? Have they traveled to one of the states that are on a travel ban? Symptoms, and again, the fever. Initially, we will be sending out, using our Blackboard Connect system, reminders to parents to remember to do that survey. And so we can help people establish that habit. For the first week or so of school, excuse me, my lights go off when I don't move around much. We will be doing that every morning or evening. We're still working that out to remind everybody. But then as we move forward and that becomes more habitual for our parents, the goal is to then reduce that down to weekly reminders to parents of that. Now, if you do check your child and they have a temperature or seem to have symptoms one morning, please call our health office. Our health office will assist you in walk you through the process that we would need to follow. We do regularly get questions about what happens if we have a diagnosed case or a student is found to be positive. First thing I want you to know is that we are going to work with our families in the event that that were ever to occur. We will partner with you. We want to work with you, make sure your child is safe, and get them back to school as soon as possible. We will do that same process with our faculty and staff as well. We are there to support everybody. One of the first partners that we have established months ago, back in March, was the Erie County Department of Health. Should we ever have a positive case here at Cleveland Hill, our first call will be to the Erie County Department of Health. We will partner with them in moving through the different processes, including contact tracing. Now, anyone that does have a positive test is required to go into a 14-day quarantine period. And again, all of this is outlined in great detail in our plan. But again, an initial positive test does result in a 14-day quarantine period. They can return to school with a doctor's note and a negative test. But we are still, I just want to remind you that, we're there to support you through this. At no time will we ever let any of our faculty, staff, students, or parents feel as though they're not sure about where they are in a process. We will work with them and partner with them throughout it. On August 7th, the governor gave us the green light to open up schools. We did do some tweaking and refining over the next couple of days after we had received that announcement, and we did announce that we would be opening in the hybrid model. Our hybrid model has been outlined on our website. We've mailed it home. Again, it's going to be the rotational blue day, blue group, gold group. Wednesdays will be full remote with synchronous learning with a schedule provided to our families and students. The reason we selected this model, again, is to, it aligned very smoothly with our neighbors, the Erie 1 component districts that surround us. It also aligns with the BOCES schedule, who we use for our vocational programming, special education, and virtual learning services. This model also allows us to address the individual needs of all students, including those who may need a full distance learning model. And then additionally, this model provides us the best structure to provide substantive instruction and engagement, both in person and remotely, for our teaching staff. And then finally, the food service requirement, which Mr. Evans will touch on a bit later. This structure also streamlines that process for us as well. Again, as we did mail out, I don't like calling it a choice. Ideally, the choice is our students come in for the hybrid model. However, that being said, we do understand that some students and some families, either due to having an immunocompromised system themselves or someone in their immediate family, has some reluctancy to returning to school, or just the fear of coming back into the school environment. We have offered the distance learning model to parents to opt for their students, and we're continuing to work with them in getting those lists finalized. One thing I did want to touch on before we get to the questions as well are rumors. There is a lot of fake news and rumors going out there in regards to schools opening, schools not opening. I have heard speculation or a rumor that Cleveland Hill is only going to open for hybrid for 2 weeks and then shift to remote learning. That is not our intent at all. Our goal is to return with 100% student capacity here in district as soon as possible. And when the Erie County Department of Health tells us they think that we are ready for that with our current plan and model in place, we will take that step. The amount of work, investment in capital, capital investment, time, resources that we have put in to developing this hybrid model to be a safe and effective tool, I would have been a fool to ever do that with any intent of shutting this place down to go to a remote model in the near future. Again, we are here to open up in the hybrid with the goal of getting to 100% capacity. A couple other things that I have heard is that Wednesday is a deep cleaning day. That is not true here at Cleveland Hill. Wednesday is going to be the remote learning day. The same cleaning that was occurring on the Monday, Tuesday, and that will be occurring on the Thursday, Friday, will be being done on Wednesday as well. But we have actually had a private company come in, evaluated our campus by, measured it out by square footage. They then evaluated our staffing levels and gave us a plan of what they felt we needed in regard to staffing and protocol to keep this building sanitized effectively throughout the course of the week. We have increased our staff in the custodian department. We've expanded our second and third shift. We've also invested heavily into training our staff on proper cleaning protocols in regards to very specific, the COVID virus. We're also using cleaning products that are recommended by the CDC. There's also been a lot of conversation out there about air handling units, leaving windows open. I want to tell you that, sometimes timing is everything. As you know, we just completed a capital project of over $10 million. A lion's share of that money is sitting on top of our roofs right now in new air handler units. Now, I want to be clear too that these are not like our home air conditioning units. These are actually air exchange systems. They are not a circulation system. Air in the district does not go from one room to another. It's actually pumped into one room and pumped out of that same room simultaneously. Some of these rooftop units, in fact, when I was working with Mr. Robertson the other day, he showed me on the computer in the area we were sitting in, one air handler unit was transitioning or exchanging over 7,000 cubic feet of air every minute. I would really say that of any school district in Western New York, I don't think that anyone has the capacity to exchange air as quickly as we do. And the reason I want to say that is it's very important for you to understand that if you do drive by and you see that the windows are closed on the campus, that is for that reason, because of the air exchange system that we currently have. By opening up the windows, it throws the system out of balance and actually reduces the exchange of air in the building. So opening up windows, unless there is something with our system, would actually be a detriment to keeping the air clean. Also in regards to the air handler units, our present filters do meet the standard required. However, we have ordered new higher rated MERV 13 filters, which we are hoping will be in before the start of school. Just a couple of other points that have come up over the week. The sending papers home. I've had requests from our PTA, who's been a great partner with us, other groups like the Boy Scouts. We would typically get flyers from them and distribute to your children. We will continue to do that practice. We are asking so that we are not inundating parents with things at home, and so to exercise some all due caution is to have those delivered to us 48 to 72 hours before they would want them to be sent home, so we can kind of leave them someplace. On that, so there could be no transfer with papers going home. Recent studies have shown that this virus is not living on surfaces like that. It is not being transmitted in that way. But I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be. So we will exercise every bit of caution we can with anything that we would be sending home. I also want to thank again the people that have, because we've had a couple more people reach out in regards to offering to transport their children to and from school to, again, help us with the density on the busing. That has been excellent, so thank you. I will now jump to our questions that were sent to us from our community members. And again, it will be myself and as well as several of the building level and district level administrators answering these questions. To hear it from me, the depth and the breadth that the person in charge of those could give you, you'll benefit more hearing from them. And so I appreciate their joining us today. The first question is about daycare. I've seen many parents on social media all over the country stating that with schools not reopening or doing hybrid, that their children will be in daycare centers. At that point, wouldn't it just be better to open the school 5 days a week and offer for parents distance learning if that's what they choose to do? Right now, again, our goal is to get back to 100%, and we're taking steps to get there. But to bring back full capacity right initially, I don't know if that's feasible just because of some of the fear and the structures and the habits that we have to establish here in district. So by starting with the hybrid, our goal is to get to the 100%. And by taking that 1 day of remote instruction, for instance, if we were to be here with 100% capacity, that's about minimally 1,500 people that would be in here. That could be a lot of contact in a building. So right now, we're going to be with the hybrid, and we're going to keep the density at about 50% to, again, keep that contact to a minimum. We're going to be able to watch and see as things play out, not only here in Cleveland Hill, but in other school districts in the region, across the state and country. But we are doing everything we can to keep that a safe environment. Our next question is for Mrs. Pasquale, our elementary school principal. Will we have the opportunity to show our kids where their classrooms are? My second grader is very nervous. Mrs. Pasquale?
Thank you, Mr. MacSwan. So to answer this question, due to the safety precautions that we have in place, we will not be permitting parents to enter the building at the start of the school year. So with that being said, we do recognize and understand that, our students are very nervous. A lot of students are generally nervous at the start of the school year, worried about where to go. But I can assure you that we will have plenty of staff available and ready to assist our students and make sure that they get to the classroom and do so safely. In addition to that, we are offering a Passport to Learning virtual event on September 2nd. So I encourage all of our families to tune into that event with their classroom teacher. Their teacher will be meeting with parents from their classrooms virtually, and that's a nice opportunity to meet the teacher, to see the classroom environment, just to get an idea of where your kiddos will be going come September. We've also talked about, as a PBIS Tier 1 committee, creating videos, posting those on our website, showcasing what the interior of the building looks like, the safety precautions put in place, and just providing those reassuring videos and messages to showcase what we've done here in the building to make it a successful start to the school year. So again, parents will not be coming in the building, but we are working creatively to reassure our students and families that they will be safe and they will get to where they need to go.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Pasquale. The next question is, I will answer this one. How will gym continue to move forward? I have a child who started swim last year, and I am concerned about locker rooms changing as well as kids working up a sweat together. The pool nor the gymnasium, and in fact, any of these special will be being used. So right now, the pool and gym, in fact, the gyms have been repurposed. For instance, our middle school, high school gymnasium is now going to be the middle school, high school cafeteria. And the pool right now, we have no plan on running any swim this year, unless we get the green light and conditions change and we're permitted to. I would look forward to getting gym and swim back going, but right now that is not in the plan. And just a side note of that, phys ed And I do have to give props to our phys ed department. They are a very talented group, and they are preparing now for so much more that they can offer that's not in a gym setting, from nutrition, teamwork, collaboration, personal fitness, a lot of that social emotional type of focus. Our phys ed department is very capable, and we're looking forward to seeing the benefits of having them actually in a classroom setting. So our phys ed, including the other elective areas of music, art, phys ed, they'll actually be pushing into the students' classes, or will have a classroom to utilize, but the gym and the pool will not be being used. Next question is for Mr. Wiles, our high school principal. With the remote virtual learning, are teachers actually teaching the children through Zoom, Google Meet, or is it going to be pre-recorded videos? Mr. Wiles.
Thank you, Mr. MacSwan. We actually have kind of two different scenarios that we're going to be working with when students are working remotely. The first one is on the off days of the hybrid. So if you're in the blue group and you are present on Mondays and Thursdays, on Tuesdays and Fridays, you will be working remotely. There may be some opportunities that this could be synchronous, where you'd have an actual meeting with the teacher, but for the most part, these are going to be extension activities where students are going to be practicing the skills that they've learned while they were in person. The Wednesday remote day, all three of our buildings have established, albeit different schedules. We all have a synchronous schedule or synchronous opportunities where students will be able to meet with their actual teachers. So at the high school level, Wednesdays actually have a schedule that students will follow beginning about 9 o'clock according to their letter day. And they'll follow through that schedule, meeting with teachers in half-hour periods. It's a great opportunity to offer some possible direct instruction, some new content. It's also a great opportunity as a check-in, reviewing certain concepts that are important that the teachers have established, and just in general, getting a chance to have a little face-to-face with the kids during that remote time.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Wiles.
Yep.
Next one is for me. For parents who work, how can we make sure kids attend the virtual classes if we are not home to make sure? Communication is going to be paramount in the effective utilization of any remote distance learning. And in that part, even in-person learning, communication is vital. Teacher to parent, parent to teacher. Our teachers, if your child is not engaging, we will be emailing you. They will also be notifying their building principal that there are certain students that may not be engaging in the remote or distance learning processes. Our first step is going to be to reach out, obviously, to the student and the parent. But if at any time a parent has any questions, concerns about how things are going, just as if we were here in school 100% capacity, please email your counselors, email your teachers, email your administrators, superintendents. Let us know. And that key is going to be communication. And that is also why it's worth checking. We did send home the demographic sheet last week. That demographic sheet updates your cell phone number, your contact information, your email address. Having accuracy on our end of your contact information is going to be key to that. So if you are not sure, or if you did not receive that demographic sheet, give the office a call and they will get those out to you. But again, key is going to be communication. In doubt, or you just have a question of maybe a wonder about how your child's doing, send an email. We will let you know immediately. Usually within 24 hours, a teacher will get back to you in that regard. Often it's within minutes, but so please communicate with us. Next question is for Mrs. Kirsten, our middle school principal. And the question, Mrs. Kirsten, is, do they have to sit by themselves at lunch?
Thank you, Mr. MacSwan, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for submitting this question. As a mom of 3 school-aged children myself, I know that this was my own children's first concern when they learned about the hybrid model. As Mr. MacSwan mentioned, safety is obviously our #1 concern, and we will be following CDC guidelines for social distancing in the cafeteria. Our safety committees in all 3 buildings have been working very hard to put procedures in place to make sure that kids have a protocol for entering and exiting the cafeteria. But we also understand that the time for lunch is also a great time, great opportunity for students to have some social time as well as decompress from the classroom. So with that in mind, our committees have been working to create opportunities for kids to make lunch enjoyable. For example, at the middle school, we will be hosting live trivia sessions. We will have some interactive videos we will be playing. We'll be playing some games in that cafeteria space while kids are sitting at their seat, socially distanced. But we do want to make it an enjoyable experience for our students as well. So I know at all 3 buildings, we will share more information at our individual building meetings. But I do want to thank you for submitting that question.
And thank you, Mrs. Kirsten. And I do just, I want to give credit to the entire administrative team. Again, I know I thanked them earlier, but one thing we're trying to demonstrate by having the entire administrative team answering these questions is how hard we have worked together to be on the same page to make sure that we are answering questions in concert with one another. That really has been key to our being able to be as confident as we are in the effective reopening of schools. You know, so we're all pretty proud of that. It's been a challenge, and we know that we still have our challenges ahead of us. Seen and unseen are out ahead of us. But I want you to know, community-wise, that we are working together as a cohesive leadership team. The buck does stop here, but some of the greatest parts of this plan, they weren't from me. They were from the administrative staff, the teaching staff, community members, parents that did participate throughout this. So next question is for Mrs. Pasquale. My oldest child was to start band this year and chose an instrument in 4th grade. What will this look like?
Sure. So band for 4th grade is something that we are prepared to do. Now in 3rd grade, if we were here in the spring, the band teacher, Mr. Schroeder, would have visited 3rd grade classrooms and introduced the students to the various instruments, and then they would have the opportunity to select an instrument and prepare for that come fall. Now with that not being feasible in the spring, we will be a bit delayed in the fall, but our music teacher and our music department, they are planning and preparing to allow students that opportunity to learn about the instruments and then select their instrument of choice. So a letter will be going home to 4th grade parents explaining the process, explaining the various instruments, and then they will be sharing a Google form with families where they can sign their child up for the instrument of choice. So that will be coming home shortly after the school year gets started, but certainly not within the first couple of weeks, but you can expect that sometime thereafter. Mr. Schroeder will be scheduling band lessons, but they will be individually or in very small groups to allow for the proper social distancing in the elementary school odd. Mr. Schroeder has indicated that he's been in communication with local music shops, and they are aware of our situation. They are fully prepared with all of the needed supplies to outfit our Cleve Hill students with their instrument of choice. So information will be coming home. We are prepared to provide instrument lessons and band lessons, but it will be a bit delayed in the fall for our 4th graders.
Thank you, Mrs. Pasquale. I will answer the next one. I've heard that if our child has symptoms of COVID while in school, we're not allowed to get them from school. Is that true? No, that is absolutely not true. In fact, it's the complete opposite of that. Students that have any symptoms, and this is part of that partnership with the parents that is going to be so vital in this plan being successful, is communication. If your child shows symptoms that may be COVID related, they will immediately be isolated. We actually have a COVID room where students will be spread out throughout that room. It's actually at one of the small auxiliary gyms that we have. It's a large space. They will be immediately taken to the COVID room and distanced from anyone else. Before the child even gets to that room, there will be a call being made to the parent. And if the parent doesn't answer, it will be to the second contact. If that contact doesn't answer, it'll be the third. We will scour the earth to find the parent to have them come in and get their child from school. So we would strongly encourage parents to, think, if my son or daughter were to get sick, how am I going to get there, or who is going to be able to come and get them? Please come up with a plan for that. The option of leaving your child at school while they're not feeling well really isn't much of an option. We need to follow the protocols and the processes laid out by the Department of Health and the CDC, and that is isolating the student, contacting the parent, having that child then taken to a healthcare provider. That child will not be able to return to school until we have a note from the healthcare provider or a COVID negative test. So please, just the opposite of what the question was, or maybe the rumor that was out there. We want you to come in and get your child as soon as possible. And please make plans for having to do that in the event that that were to occur. Next question is, what is the plan for children who are staying home for 10 days or until negative test results are received? The plan for them is that if they are in the hybrid and that are then placed into a 10-day isolation or 14-day quarantine period, and I'll explain the differences of those. An isolation period is if you have symptoms of COVID, cough, respiratory type issues. That goes in and you're sent home. You are then placed into a 10-day isolation period until the symptoms are gone and you are without fever reducing medication for 24 hours prior to returning to school. That 10 days is assuming that the virus is in somebody and that it takes that time to defeat the virus and get ready to return back to school. The quarantine actually comes from a close contact with someone who was COVID positive. So if we have 5 people in a room and they are within 6 feet of each other for more than 10 minutes, each of those people in that room are considered a close contact and would be required to quarantine for a 14-day period. The 14-day period is for the incubation time of the virus to show symptoms in somebody and be able to be tested. So that's the difference of the 10 and the 14 days. But those students will, if they are sent home, they will receive distance learning, remote instruction while they are home. Either it's due to an isolation because they were demonstrating symptoms, or whether or not they were in close contact with somebody. Now, on that close contact, this is very important. All of our classrooms, the entire district is set up right now, and the processes and the procedures are to avoid any close contact. That's why that 50% capacity is so important to transition back. Desks are beyond 6 feet. Cafeteria, they will be 6 feet. Walking through the hallways, and I know Mrs. Pasquale even has ropes with marks on them that kids are gonna, just to show them what 6 feet is, so they get used to walking down the hallways. It's going to be our responsibility to keep students from ever being designated as a close contact of somebody. And again, that is being within 6 feet of somebody with or without a mask for 10 minutes or more. Our job is to structure it to keep that opportunity to a minimum or virtually non-existent. Same person, another question. What happens if you have multiple children? Now, it's an excellent question. If I have 3 children, one of my kids wakes up in the morning with a fever. I call the nurse. I let them know that, hey, Johnny, it's my name. Not Johnny, but John. John has a fever. I'm not sending him to school today. The other 2 siblings, I've checked them. I've been able to check no to all the survey questions. They are coming into school. You are not required to keep all of your children home if one of them is showing symptoms. You will be required to take your child that is demonstrating possible symptoms to a healthcare provider for an assessment and screening for the virus. If that child is designated as COVID positive, they would then be placed into virtual learning for a period of 10 days or until they are asymptomatic in 24 hours without a fever, without fever reducing medication. Your other children then, though, they would be required to be placed into a 14-day quarantine period because they were in close contact with their sibling at home who is a positive confirmed COVID patient. I hope that was the question that you were looking for insight to. That's actually an excellent one. But contact with somebody, close contact with someone who's suspected of being COVID positive does not require quarantine until they are confirmed COVID positive. And again, we will be requiring documentation and working with parents and their healthcare providers to follow through on that documentation. And again, I know that's a lot to have thrown at you. We are there to support you through this. Don't ever feel like you're overwhelmed or, oh my God, what do I do? That's what we are here for, is to help you transition through this entire process. If one is saying staying home with a stomach ache, are they home for 10 days? No, they are not home for 10 days. I would encourage you to contact your healthcare provider. If the healthcare provider agrees that, you know what, this is a simple case of the stomach bug or too much candy on the night of Halloween, they can go back to school. They will need to provide us a noted documentation that they are okay to return to school, and they could come back to school the next day. But there is going to be, having 2 kids of my own, there'll be a lot of trips to the doctor's office, unfortunately for some people. My son would have had me there regularly, and that's just the reality of it. We're going to have to understand that, you know, our doctors' offices are well prepared. We've talked to our own district physician in this regards. There may be a lot of trips to the doctor's office to confirm that we are keeping school as safe as we can. Next question. How are the children going to be protected? I would encourage whoever sent that question in to please go in and read our plan. You can also now, when you're done reading the district level plan, regardless of what school your child is in, you can look through the specific building level procedures and protocols that are in there. I would also then encourage you to watch our other town hall meeting that is available on our website. Hopefully you're watching today, and also tune in to the principal's question and answers tomorrow. If there's any specific questions you have after taking a look at that information that we have available, please let me know. If both parents leave before children get up for school, how do you expect or recommend us to do a health screening? Well, most of the health screening, again, is going to be, most of the questions are, have they traveled to a state? Have they been in contact with someone that's been a positive COVID case? Do they have symptoms or a fever? While they're sleeping, you could walk in there, check their temperature, assess them. Are they breathing normally? Are they sleeping comfortably? If you go in and you check their temperature, they have those handheld temporal scanners, which we now have several of them here in district. You could get yourself one of those where you don't even have to bother them while they are sleeping. Understanding that a number of parents may struggle or not have a thermometer at home, we've actually ordered a number of those test strip thermometers that you apply and hold to your child's forehead, and it will give you whether or not they have an elevated temperature right by the color-coded bar that'll show up on that. So we understand that, so we're trying to provide further resources. So if you don't have a thermometer, simply shoot your building principal or teacher a call. Also, if maybe you run to work and you think to yourself, oh my God, I forgot to take John's temperature. What do I do? Call our health office. We'll be waiting for your child. We'll bring them to the health office. We'll check their temperature, check them for symptoms, and then send them right back to class. Another question for me. With desks being socially distant, some classes removing desks, does this mean kids are now to share desks with opposite day kids? Or are their assigned desks with the opposite days, with opposite day desks in the same rooms? For the most part, yes, students will be using desks that were used by another student the previous day. I do want to again reiterate, in fact, I failed to go over it earlier, is that each of our classrooms, in fact, I'll hold this up to share this. This is our classroom disinfection program. Each space that will be occupied by any individual, including classrooms, has this sheet that is completed daily and signed for by the custodian who is in charge of the custodian or laborer who is in charge of that area to verify that each of these surfaces, doorknobs, switches, desks, seats, fixtures, have all been sanitized with the chemicals and the procedures that are outlined in our plan. So we are comfortable and confident that the desks will be safe for students.
Mr. MacSwan,
Yes.
if I could just elaborate on that at the elementary building.
Yes, please do.
So for our classroom with individual student desks, we will be keeping a class set of desks, a whole class set of desks in the classroom. So therefore, we would not be sharing between the gold and the blue group. So the way the classrooms are configured in the hybrid model with the individual student desks, they're in pairs. One would be identified as a blue desk, the other one would be identified as a gold desk. And in that way, the maintenance department and staff could see if it's a blue day, they make sure to really clean those blue desks. And similar to gold desks as well. So we will not be sharing individual student desks in the elementary building, and the supplies will remain in the desks and only meant for that particular student.
Thank you, Mrs. Pasquale. And to also go back, I did mention, we talked some about if we have a positive test, what are the protocols? I also encourage you to visit our website. You'll see a couple of flow charts which we use to to communicate within the organization, and also wanted to share with you of how we follow the procedures outlined by the Department of Health should there be a positive case or a suspected case here at the district. All right, we're getting there on our questions. Thank you all for joining us. And this next question is going to Mr. Janis. We just got our letter stating our children are in blue group. Does this mean they will be getting remote instruction the first 2 days? If so, will there be further instruction from their teachers coming out?
Hey, thank you, Mr. MacSwan. Every parent at this point should have received something like this, where every single school day is denoted for the year. It's color coded. It also says which attendance group is coming on that particular day. It also gives the day of the cycle. So this question related to a parent who got this and said their child is in the blue group. That parent is correct, because Monday, the first week of school, is Labor Day. So that means that Tuesday is a gold day, which means blue is home. Wednesday is a full remote day for everybody. Thursday is the first day where blue is in attendance, and then Friday is gold. And then after that, we just repeat our cycle where every Monday and Thursday is blue, and every Tuesday and Friday is gold. As part of the full remote and the days students are home, our elementary school primary grades will be using Seesaw as their main learning platform. However, grades 2 through 12 will focus more on the Google Classroom. The second part of that question is, will there be further instruction coming out from our teachers? Well, first of all, you're going to get further instruction from the district office. We'll be sending out letters in late August, like we did last year in March, that will have your child's school email address, the Google login, and the Google password. So that will allow you to get right in, check it out, make sure everything's operational. And our goal is to assure that you get that probably September 4th. We're targeting that you get it by that Friday. So also, by going through our colored calendar, we wanted to obviously make sure that the blue and the gold groups were getting equivalent school days. To give you an idea, blue gets 73 school days, gold gets 72 school days. And what I mean is in person. And then there's 37 Wednesdays that everybody is participating in. So I hopefully that answered the question. If you did not get this calendar, please feel free to call one of the main offices and we can send it back out to you. However, it is also posted on the website under calendars. Thank you.
Mr. Janis, a question for you.
Okay.
When we send out our mass communications to the community, do our student emails receive those?
Our student emails do not receive them because they are not loaded in Blackboard Connect. However, we do have in our Google Suite that we have like groups that we could send out to all elementary students, all high school students, just grade 6 students, just grade 9 students. So it's something we certainly can share internally anytime we want it as well. So we could send it out really to both groups.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
I will take the next one. If we are choosing to do distance learning, will we be able to send our kids back to school if you go to 100% capacity? Yes, the expectation or the hope would be that all students would return if we return to 100% capacity. That being said, as long as there is a threat of COVID existing in our community, we will honor those requests to remain full distance learning. Again, I do want to say that, we'll honor that request, but I still believe that, students here in school in front of teachers, there's really no substituting for that, but we will support that. But yes, you can come back to school. Hoping for the best possible outcome as plans take effect, can children switch to distance learning if they attempt the hybrid model? Yes, they can switch to distance learning if they start in the hybrid model. The reason we are having people commit to it by quarters on the distance learning side of it is that the balancing of our staffing right now is it's a challenge. It's a challenge. And the number of kids that are in building, keeping that balanced class levels equal across the district or grade levels is a challenge. And if all of a sudden a handful of kids decide, I want back in, we're going to need time to reevaluate our staffing. So the going from hybrid to distance learning, yes, you would be able to do that. Distance learning to hybrid, that is where the quarterly commitment is coming into place. Our next question goes to our Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Evans. Will the district be providing free breakfast and lunch to the students again this year? And for the days students will be being virtual learning, are you setting up a drive-through lunch line like you did in the spring?
Thank you. So yes, we will be providing free lunch and breakfast. So again, the school district is community certified, which means all students within the district receive free lunch, not just those that qualify for free and reduced. On the days that the students are in attendance, they will get their lunch and breakfast as usual. For those remote days, there will be a process where the students will pick up their lunches for the days that they're not in attendance as they leave. And for those students who are on the fully remote learning, we will not have the drive-through tent again this year. We will be dispensing those lunches through our Family Resource Center, which has an exterior door in the same bus loop that the tent was in. And the exact configuration and days that will operate, we're still working on that. However, for families, do expect us to send out an email looking to see if any parents would like to volunteer in our Family Resource Center, handing out those meals on the days that we will be doing the meals for the fully distant students. So that's how the lunches will operate this school year.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. One thing I did want to clarify, taking a step back. Right now, we have our window has closed for requesting to opt into distance learning. That's the online option. If you are still interested in different distance learning, you simply need to reach out to your building principal, and they will walk you through that process that way. Next question will be for Mrs. Robertson, our school business official. I just wanted to know if my daughter will be bused because I don't drive.
Sure. So transportation will continue to be provided by student transportation, just like it was in the past. The past practice, which will continue, is that students in kindergarten are all eligible for busing. Students in 1st through 5th grade are bused if they live outside of a half mile from the school. And the children in grades 6 through 12 will be bused if they're outside of 3/4 of a mile from the school. So that's the same practice we've had, and that will continue. We do appreciate that when we put out the survey requesting that parents transport their students if they can, or their children, we got a great response to that. And so a number of parents have opted to transport. Just a reminder, if at any point you aren't able to do that anymore, just contact the district. You can contact me or Mrs. Tavar, and just let us know, and you can opt back into transportation. But in the meantime, that'll help keep our numbers down. Between having only half the kids coming each day and then the opt-outs, we hope to have much less density on those buses. But just a reminder that on those buses, we really can't guarantee that 6-foot distancing. So we will still be expecting all students to wear their masks, both at the bus stop and once they board the bus. The entire time for the bus ride, they need to keep that mask on. And the other request that we have is that you tell your children, if they're riding with their sibling, if they're attending elementary together or middle high together, that the siblings do sit together to help keep the other kids spaced out appropriately. And then just as always, bus schedules, bus numbers and bus times for pickup will be sent out in the coming weeks from student transportation. Those might come a little later than typical because of all the changes that we're making this year, but you will be receiving that. And if you're expecting busing and don't get a card, then please reach out to either student transportation or to my office. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Robertson. I'll answer the next one. What is the difference from being in school or at home if they can't do any extra activities, examples, gym, art, and music? Again, gym, art, and music will all be meeting. Our next question is for Mr. Evans. Please expand your answer from the last town hall meeting as to how specifically a student with an IEP due to a disability will be provided instruction with either the in-person hybrid model or through distance learning model to achieve their IEP goals and receive needed therapies, PT, OT, and speech. Mr. Evans?
Thank you. So it'll look a little bit different for a student who is on a hybrid model versus a student who is on the fully remote. For our students who are in our self-contained classrooms in grades K through 8, they'll be coming all 4 days. So there won't be the need for the remote distance except for the Wednesday for our self-contained classrooms. For the hybrid model, our therapists are going to be prioritizing students based on how well they did during the distance learning in the spring. And they're also seeing some students this summer, along with the students who are in our summer success program, which is virtual this summer. So those students who are very successful and been making progress through the distance related services, those students will probably receive a portion of their related services through distance when we return. The students who did not respond well to the distant related services, or who once we benchmark their IEP goals when the students return, would then be prioritized for in-person related services. One of the things with students being in our co-teaching classrooms twice a week, we want to respect and preserve as much of that instructional time in the classroom as we can. So if I'm in on Monday, I might be receiving my related services virtually on Tuesday so that I can get the full benefit of being in my instructional program on Monday. For those students who are going to be, so for all of the students, they're all going to be individual decisions. And each parent will be contacted with exactly how the program will look for their child. And again, it will be individualized based on the child's individual needs. For the students who are in a distant learning model, completely remote, you might receive a part of your instruction from a general education teacher with some consultation with the special education teacher. And then some portions of the instruction would be delivered by a special education teacher. In that scenario, in a distance learning, all related services would be delivered remotely. And that would be arranged in consultation with the related service provider. So the OT, PT, or speech would be reaching out to contact. So if your child has a 30-minute session and it's decided between yourself and the related service provider that they would not tolerate being on the computer for that long, it might be a 20-minute session, and then the therapist might give some follow-up activities to be done at home. If your child has a one-to-one aide here in the school, there will be some reach out on the remote days from that aide that might do some a reinforcement activity. So really each individual program is going to be tailored to the individual needs of the student. If you have a specific question about your child, and we've been talking to parents all along, don't hesitate to give us a call. Our extension is 8500, and we'd be happy to talk about every individual student. And again, we will be reaching out over the next 2 weeks to talk to each parent about the program of their child.
And Mr. Evans, this next question is also for you. My son is 7 years old with autism, who does not like to wear a mask and loves to put things in his mouth. How do we go about trying to keep him safe during his time in class?
Yes, so we do have a few of our classrooms with students who don't have that safety awareness. And so it's incumbent upon the staff to be the members of the classroom who are looking at the health and safety of the students. So in those classrooms, our staff will have the full PPE, so face visors and masks and gloves, the polycarbonate shields for every student. If a child does put something in their mouth, there will be a bin in the hallway that the staff members can put those items into the bin, and then the cleaning staff after school knows that they have to sanitize every one of those items. If there's a question about a student who's not attending our school, but attending one of the specialized schools out of district, again, give us a call. Our extension is 8500. We can answer any question specific to those schools as well.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. For Ms. Kirsten, will our kids need locks? Will they even be using their lockers?
Yep, thank you. So students in grades 6 through 12 do need locks for their lockers, and we will be utilizing lockers throughout the school day. Our PBIS committees and safety committees at both the middle school and high school have developed locker plans for our students with scheduled locker visits throughout the day. At the middle school, students will visit their lockers in the morning, right before lunch, after lunch, and then when they leave again at the end of the day. A process has been put in place to make sure that students are socially distanced when using their lockers at the middle school level. At the high school level, those locker times are also scheduled. Students will be using their lockers at the start of the school day, the end of the school day, as well as before lunch to grab their lunches. And at the high school level, to help students carry supplies from class to class, the high school is allowing students to utilize backpacks this year.
Thank you, Mrs. Kirsten. Will kids need supplies? Will we be getting a supply list? Mrs. Kirsten, we'll let you finish with that one.
So supply lists are available at all 3 buildings on our building web pages. We have a link for student supplies. Students will be utilizing school supplies this year, and you will receive communications from your child's individual teachers regarding those supplies. We do have plans in place so that students will not be sharing any supplies within our classroom settings, as well as we'll communicate which supplies can be kept at home for utilization on those hybrid days.
Thank you very much. Our next question is for our Director of Instruction and Technology, Mr. Janis. Mr. Janis, will Chromebooks be distributed to everyone, even homes that need 3?
Yes, we have a device for every child. We'll be using primarily iPads in the primary grades, as I mentioned before, grades UPK through 1, and primarily Chromebooks, grades 2 through 12. We also have some Chromebooks that are on back order that we want to be utilizing in the upcoming school year. The unusual thing is, prior to COVID hitting, the pandemic hitting, we had a technology goal that we wanted to assure that every student had access to technology in every single classroom. So obviously the pandemic just accelerated our plan. So we will be distributing devices. Our goal is to distribute them before Labor Day. So we'll be communicating with parents on certain pickup days at the high school, the middle school, and the elementary school. We're probably starting on the 24th, 25th, I believe, with Mr. Wiles, because he has a 9th grade small group orientation where students are coming in small groups. So we're hoping to have those machines ready with assigned to specific students, power cords, and they're ready to take them home on that day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Janis. The next question is for you as well.
Okay.
With the many types of technology platforms used by the school to achieve learning, will there be any training for students, parents, and extended family for those that need it?
There's many answers to that. First of all, we've been using Google Classroom for over 5 years. We were using it heavily, in particular at the high school and the middle school, long before this. So our students have a proficiency in Google Classroom. The elementary has some very heavy Google Classroom user grade levels. Specifically, I know grade 3 off the top of the head is very heavy with Google Classroom. So we're talking about 3rd grade students who are fluent. Obviously, the pandemic, necessitated our whole staff and our students to become more proficient in this technology, and it's happened. But what we're going to do to address any needs is we're hoping to set up, and we'll have it on the district website, like a Google form for students that if they need a machine repair, like their cord's not working or there's a missing key, they'll be able to submit a Google form, which will be able to go right to the tech department. We'll probably ask for a contact email or a contact phone number so we can meet their needs as quickly as possible. Then we're probably going to set up like a Google form for instructional technology assistance. That would be more of a, I can't log in or I don't understand how to use that, and we can redirect that to the appropriate person. But as I said, our students have very strong proficiency in the technology, but we do need to make something available for them if they're a little bit lost. They'll also have their teachers obviously online on the remote Wednesdays. Many of them will probably be using Google Classroom or Seesaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Janis. We're getting there, everyone. Thank you for your patience and staying with us this long. We have about 4 questions left. This next question is actually myself and the principals will touch on it, but the principals, I'm sure, will go into this in more detail in their building level question and answers. But the question is, if we have opted out of busing for our children, has a plan been made for drop off and pickup? If so, what will it look like? That's a challenging one because there's really 3 different buildings here. So I will start with Mrs. Pasquale at the elementary school, and then we'll go to Mrs. Kirsten and Mr. Wiles just to kind of touch on some of the changes that have been implemented there.
So at the elementary building for parent drop off and pickup, we are going to be creating a car lane in the back of the elementary building. So it will be adjacent to the playground. So essentially we will have parents be able to drive through the lane for drop off. The children would be exiting their vehicles on the passenger side onto the sidewalk, and they will be entering the building through the Eagle entrance in a safe and orderly manner. For pickup, we will utilize the same process for the car lane. For that, we will be issuing parents car tags, up to 2 car tags per car. Students will have a corresponding tag for their backpack. Numbers will be registered to families that will match up with the contacts. So we're assuring that students are being released to appropriate people on the contact list. So all of that will be communicated to you, and all of that will be done in advance of the school year. So for pickup, the cars will, parents will remain in their vehicles. They will pull through the car lane. We will have staff members outside communicating to staff members inside to send students out as their parent pulls up, and students will be released to go into their parents or the person responsible for picking them up their vehicle. So we're not having parents park and exit their vehicle. So we are going to be communicating more specifics relative to that car lane, but we will be looking to establish that and communicate the details in the very near future.
Thank you. And Mrs. Kirsten?
So traditionally, the middle school and the high school have shared a parent pickup and drop off loop. But in efforts to minimize the number of students going through one entrance and to maintain the greatest amount of social distancing we can, the middle school will now be using the elementary school bus loop for drop off and pickup. We're lucky that the middle school start time is well before the elementary school, and we end before the elementary school, so it will not interfere with any of the practices at the elementary level. But an important note, a little bit new or different for this year, students will not be able to enter the building until 7:35. So just a note for parents, when you are transporting your students to school, please don't drop them off early or get here early. They will not be able to enter the building until 7:35.
And Mr. Wiles?
And at the high school, we will be utilizing that parent loop that was established in the last couple of years. A couple of key points, adding on to what Mrs. Kirsten just added. She mentioned that 7:35 is the earliest that a student can be dropped. I know in the past that sometimes students would be dropped a little earlier and they would be allowed in the building. We cannot allow people inside of the building without full staff present at this point. So please no drop-offs before 7:35. That also includes the walkers, our bike riders, skateboarders. Don't plan on coming into the building before 7:35. We'll also ask that students, upon exiting their parent or guardian's car, please make sure that you are masked at that time. And one other important point, we have had issues in the past where parents want to drop off their drop off their child in the bus loop in the front. We are really asking that we use that parent loop as it was intended to avoid any issues with overwhelming numbers of students coming in a particular entrance. So please make sure you use that parent drop-off loop. The entrance is at the tennis courts, right where Hughes and Bigelow and South Roycroft meet. And we're going to really ask that you do not drop students off before 7:35, and please make sure they're masked upon exiting your vehicle. All right, thank you.
And I'll add at the elementary building, the drop-off time is 8:15 at the Eagle entrance. So in the past, students have congregated prior to that time, but we're asking that that no longer continues. 8:15 will be the time where the doors will open, and that's when supervision will be there. Prior to that, we will not have supervision at the Eagle entrance.
Thank you all. The next question we're going to answer in the same team approach because it is different for the different levels. What is the plan for transporting supplies back and forth from home to school? Or should we buy multiples? And I will start with Mrs. Pasquale.
So at the elementary building for school supplies, we are going to be communicating, teachers will be communicating in their letters for parents to keep supplies at home for those remote learning days. So you are not required to buy multiples. So that information will be communicated so that you have ample supplies at home to successfully participate in the remote learning, as well as having the supplies for in-person learning at school. If you are a family who purchased a school supply kit from the PTSA, those kits are here. They will be in your child's classroom on their first day, and the teachers will be sending supplies home for the children to keep on those remote learning days.
Thank you. And Mrs. Kirsten?
The same procedures apply at the middle school level. So we will have individual supply kits for our students to use within our classroom space. And so your teachers will communicate which items specifically should be kept at home, and no, you will not need to purchase multiples at the middle school level. But something that is very important to note is, and this applies to multiple buildings as well, is students will be asked to travel back and forth from school to home with their Chromebooks or electronic devices. It's very important that our parents help us. We'll work with our kids to make sure that they are bringing them to school each and every day charged and ready to go. We will be utilizing them heavily in our classrooms as well as at home on those hybrid or remote learning days. So the Chromebooks, that's an important piece that students are really going to need to make sure that they bring to and from class.
And Mr. Wiles.
Echoing that statement, there will not be a requirement to buy multiples of any particular supplies for our high school students. High school students will be asked to transport things back and forth on the in-person days and bring them home so that they are accessible to them on the remote days. And that's also one of the reasons why we are going to allow backpacks from class to class this year for the safe transport of those devices from class to class. But also, again, like Mrs. Kirsten mentioned, making sure that we are bringing the Chromebooks to and from school on those attendance days.
And thank you, Mr. Wiles. We're getting there, 2 questions. And then any community members that may wish to speak would then have the opportunity. This is a question for Mrs. Pasquale about UPK. What will the plan look like for UPK program, particularly the program held at another location, such as a daycare, full day, half day? Will they be given remote learning materials?
So our UPK program in-house will follow the district plan for the instructional model. So we will be starting in the hybrid, with the exception of the full distance learning option that will not be offered to our UPK students. So specific to our community-based organization, which is our EduKids, the Maryvale site, as per the requirements from state ed, all community-based organizations were required to submit a plan for instruction. We have obtained that plan, and in here it does specify the 3 models, and EduKids is prepared to implement full in-person instruction, remote, and hybrid. Instructional materials would be provided through EduKids, but we also partner in that and sharing what we're doing here in-house to make sure that it's aligned and the students are receiving quality and targeted instruction. So that will all be something that we will continue to communicate, just as we did back in the spring, to provide materials to our offsite so that the students have what they need to successfully participate in the remote learning option. So the plan is here, and they are prepared to implement the 3 instructional models as needed.
Thank you, Mrs. Pasquale. And our last question, is there a waiver the parents have to sign if our children or child gets COVID? We can't sue the school? No, there is not. You are not required to sign any waiver to send your children to school. That is all of the questions. I again want to thank everyone that submitted the questions. These do help, and they actually engage all of us in some great dialogue here on campus. So thank you all for your time and your questions. And I also want to thank the entire administrative staff, especially all of you who spoke today, for a great job. And I will go now to Mr. Janis in regards to, do we have any community members that would like to speak?
Mr. MacSwan, for those parents who were sent a participant link that requested that, none of them have logged in today, so we have no one in the room to pose questions.
Okay, so with that, that brings us to the end of our time together. I do anticipate doing another one of these in the future as we get a little closer to answer further questions. I think this dialogue is important, but I do want to remind everyone, some of the keyest information will be provided by our building principals tomorrow. Their building question and answer videos will be being posted tomorrow. I'm looking forward to seeing them, and I'm also looking forward to seeing all of you here in school sometime in the real near future. Thank you again for joining us. Have a great day.